Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Shan, and today we are going to talk about Terraform and Azure. So this is one of the first tutorial of Terraform, advancing Terraform. If you haven't watched my previous video on Terraform, probably you can browse through my channel DevOps with Shan and look through Terraform. Even if you are new to Terraform or infrastructure as a code or automation or DevOps, probably it's an ideal platform for you to get started and understand what Terraform is all about, how Terraform is solving a problem in the area of DevOps and automation. So let's get started. So what we're gonna do is today we're gonna authenticate Terraform with Azure. So there are a bunch of what you can use is Terraform can be used to write infrastructure as a code. What that mean is whatever you were doing using GUI, clicking around the portal and creating bunch of resources. Now these resources could have been anything: your virtual machine, EC2 instances, Droplet, DigitalOcean Droplet, or public IP addresses. Resource could be any type of resources. All these resources can be automated, and you can write them as a code. So Terraform gives you the power to write these resources as a code and reuse them for your infrastructure or environment. Now, Terraform is an open source product, which means you don't have to pay anything. However, Terraform also comes with an enterprise edition, which gives you quite a few benefits like single sign-on or 24/7 support, 365 support, and a lot of other uh, functionality which you get with Terraform Enterprise version. But trust me, with open source, you get most of these features which you generally get with enterprises. So all of your enterprise level problem could be solved using Terraform open source as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna write some Terraform code. We're gonna copy some Terraform code from Terraform. So idea is to understand how to look for code, how do you reuse them rather than writing. So if the code is available over the web, there's no point writing them from the scratch. So that's and then use those code from different community and customize them basis on your environment. So what we're going to do is we're going to create resources on Azure. So there are multiple providers when Terraform can talk with. There are more than 100 providers. So we're going to use Azure. You can use A- AWS, GCP, DigitalOcean, could be anything. So the first step is to authenticate Terraform with Azure, with the provider. Now Terraform needs to talk with Azure. There are multiple ways you can do it. Either you can uh, download AZ Azure CLI, and you can simply download it and keep it into your directory, and that's how you can authenticate Terraform with Azure. So I've already downloaded it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open my CLI. This is the Visual Studio Code I'm using, so it's one of the I would say uh, eye-pleasing or very easy to use and comes with a lot of features for Terraform like auto completion, and you can run Terraform right from here. So I recommend you to download Visual Studio if you haven't got one. So what you can do is you can authenticate. The first step is to Terraform needs to talk to your Azure. You can do it using AZ login, and it's gonna take you to a browser where you can simply uh, type in your password with the username. That's how you authenticate basically. You type in your username. I hope that's correct. So I'm already signed in. Alright, so let's sign out and sign in differently. Let's enter the password. I hope I remember it correctly. Alright, let's give it one more try and hopefully this time it lets us enter. Yep, we've logged into the console, and now we can simply go back to our CLI, and you can see it has logged in successfully. I've got only one subscription, and that's a free trial I'm using, so that's why it's showing as free trial. So I'm gonna clear the screen, and the first thing, so what we're gonna do is now we've authenticated. The first step is to create resources on Azure. So generally what you do, you spin up your resource group. The first thing on Azure, you create a resource group on Azure. That's what we're gonna do with Terraform as well. So you can search for code right from here. Terraform Azure, and it's gonna give you a bunch of documentation. So we're gonna use it, and you're gonna click over here, and there are a bunch of documentation available over here, data source, and then if you browse base resource, and then a lot of other uh, components as well. So what do we want is, first thing is to create the base resource group, and the syntax goes like resource, and the name of the resource, it's going to be Azure RM resource group. Let's check if that is correct. Resource group, and give it a reference. This can be used later, so I'm gonna demo rg, and then few of the parameters, and you can actually check from the documentation which parameters are mandatory and which are not. So the name is a mandatory parameter, so you can give it over here and give it a name over here, demo resource group. Yep, sounds good. And I think the next was location. Yep, so we can choose East US probably. So I kind of work on Azure every day, so I remember these by heart. So you can always get the list of location from the Azure website. And I think that's pretty much all. Tags are optional. So I think we are okay to get started. I think so. So let's probably run. The first step you do is whenever you create a new write new configuration, what you do is you run Terraform init, and that initializes it. It kind of understand which module it needs to download, which provider it needs to talk to. In this case, it's going to be Azure, and then you do a Terraform plan, and if there are any, so apparently looks like it has cached my previous Terraform configs. If we do a plan, it's going to show us what it's going to create. That's always handy. So instead of running it directly onto your production environment, what you can do is you can do a Terraform plan, and then plan going to give you a kind of a look up what it's going to create. So it's going to create a resource group, and that's pretty much all. If you go ahead and apply it, and what you can do is simply say auto approve, otherwise it's gonna pop up with yes or no, and it is going to start creating the resource for us. If we go back to the resource group in Azure portal, it is going to show you that it has started to create one. So it has already created one, as you can see over here. Demo resource group, it is currently empty at the moment. Alright, so it has created the resource group, and yeah, that's, and it has, as you can see, if I just scroll my window a bit over here, so once it is Terraform applies the configuration which you have written onto your config file, it generate few state is like memory of Terraform kind of learns what it has created, what it has. So it kind of stores all the metadata over here, the type, API type, and the subscription details over here, name of the resource group, region, and the provider. Now, if you try to create this resource group, it is going to say that there's nothing to create because Terraform kind of learns from the Terraform state. However, if you now delete, so as you can see, there's no changes. However, if you just delete the state right from here and delete the backup as well, Terraform kind of gives you backup of your state file. So now if you create a run a plan, it hasn't stored anything into it, so it might just tell you that it is going to recreate that environment resource group for you. As you can see over here, it is going to recreate for us, and if we apply, we should see something happening. So I forgot to enter auto approve, so it's gonna ask me yes or no. I'm gonna type in yes, and let's see what it does. Alright, it has created a resource group again for us. If you go back to the resource group over here and see, so that's the I think by default behavior. If you've got one over here, it tries to override rather than recreating it one. So I think you cannot have two identical resource group the same name. So if I try to create demo resource group right from here, what it does, it east and if I just try to create one, will it just, yeah, so it kind of override the existing one. So yeah, that's how you create a sample resource. So there's one more thing you need to, either you can define your variable over here, but generally you don't do in your production environment. So what you generally do is you would create a variable file that's gonna be var.df, and you're gonna define your variables over here rather than defining it to the code block. So we're gonna define two variables right over here. Those two variables gonna be name of the resource group, and that's going to be default created using tf, and the location. Now this name could be anything, location 1, and then give it a default name, and the location name that's gonna be east us, and we're gonna remove our values from here, and the syntax to define variable is the dollar and then the square braces var interpolation. We call this interpolation, interpolation dot name, and same goes over here as well, and var dot location. Yep, and you're gonna hit save, and if we do a terraform plan, all right, we haven't hit save. I think if we hit control s and try to run it again, it should be good now. So as you can see, this time it should be good and let us create the resources. So that's how you can define your variable actually. So I mean, yeah, that's says it kind of understand that the resources already being created using and you what you've done is you just removed your resources from here and trying to create one. So now what it is doing, it is, since you have created earlier config defined the configs over here and you kind of replaced it. However, these resources are already there in the Terraform state, which means Terraform is kind of understanding that you want to delete the previous resource and create the new one. So yeah, if you just do a Terraform apply, it going to destroy the previous one and then create a new one. So that's why the minus and the plus sign, minus sign indicates that it's going to destroy the previous one and create a new one. It's going to ask for yes or no. I'm going to type in yes, and it is going to create a resource for us with the name, whatever we have given. The name was created using tf. Yep, that's pretty much all. So I think that's about the basic. Just wanted to recap what we have done so far in our last videos. However, let's suppose we want to create a virtual machines. Let's start slow and steady, and then try to create one Azure virtual machine. So for that, I've already created bunch of um modules. But what you can do is you can simply go to Terraform site, and if you just look for virtual machine over here, you would kind of get, so under the compute, if you get virtual machine detail over here, right over here, you can kind of copy the code right from here and then paste it into your uh, config file and then edit it basis on your requirement. So I've already done that for you so that we don't need to sit through and read one by one code, line by line code. So what we're going to do is, let's see if pit picks up the configuration, otherwise we'll have to, yeah, so it is going to pick up the configuration. So I'm gonna take you through, so you know what, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up the main file right from here, the content of the main file, and take you through what I've done. So what I've done is I have provided the resource group over here, just like we have done it on in our previous resource group creation. And then we have created a bunch of variables. We want to create a network as well. And we have kind of given the name and the address space as well, and the location. So what we've done is, instead of giving, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna use the same location as our resource group exists into. So what we can do is, we pick up the variable attribute, and then we give it the interpolation, and then we utilize the same as your resource group. What we've done is, as your resource group and then the resource group reference, what we have defined over here, and the name of this resource group. Type in name or location, and it's going to pick the same location which we have defined over here. So that's how we kind of use this particular reference. All right, so same we have done for resource group name as well, and then we've got subnet. All these codes I've not written obviously through from scratch, because you don't need to if these are available over website. What I've just done is I've picked the code from here, converted them into variables, just like I showed you a couple of minutes back, and then just gave it my name, the custom name I've interpolated, and then the IP configuration and the virtual machine right from here, storage OS disk, and the image publisher name. And yeah, that's pretty much all. I think that's, yeah, that's, so I'm gonna copy the variable as well right from here and put in the variable name, and I'm gonna delete bunch of, so this is one of the other authentication type you can use. I'm gonna show you into our next video, however. So yeah, that's pretty much all. If I do a Terraform init and do a Terraform plan, it should show us something it is going to create, or some typo if there are any. So looks like the resource group we have need to save it right over here and save it where as well, and do a Terraform init again and Terraform plan. Let's see if it picks up the configuration we have put that in the file and create some resources for us. As you can see, it has picked up the configuration, and there are eight resources to change. And if I apply them, so if I just show you one interesting thing, see, this is something called Provisioner in Terraform. So that's one of the advanced level stuff which we use in Terraform. So Provisioner is just like, once the machine is created or destroyed, you can perform some action. So if we go back to under the resource virtual machine, what we can do is Provisioner, and then the type of Provisioner. So what I'm doing is, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna create a file. I'm gonna pick up the file right from my local machine, my system where I'm running Terraform from, and the destination gonna be home, and the name of the virtual machine, and I'm gonna copy this particular file. And then the connection type as well I'm given, the type gonna be SSH, since this is going to be a Linux machine, and the username and password. What it's going to do is, it is going to create the machine for us, and once the machine is created, it's going to copy this particular file. So it's kind of a config manager also. Using Provisioner, you can manage your config as well. And if I run a Terraform apply and click on yes, and we should see that our resources would be created. So I'm gonna pause the recording right now and come back when the resources are created. Alright guys, so we've just hit the end of the script, and this has been successfully created for us. And yeah, that's all we wanted. The machine has been created, and you can see the provisioner with file has been created successfully as well. And if you go back to the portal right over here, source group, and click on the my resource group. That's what the name we've given, and I think that's the machine we've just created. What we're gonna do is we are going to copy this and SSH into the machine. So that's gonna be SSH at the rate name, and I'm gonna copy my super secret password as well. It's not secret anymore, as you guys can see that as well, but never mind. I'm gonna delete the pass machine anyways right after we've finished. And if you go to cd home and then Shan, we should have the main file right over here. All right, that's pretty much all. That's what the configuration is all about. I hope this was informative. So once we have um, created the resources, and if it's a sandbox or development environment and we don't need the resource anymore, simply hit Terraform destroy and auto approve, and it's going to destroy all the resources it has just created for us. So as you can see, it is going to read the state and get the information from the state what it has created for us a couple of minutes back, and then it's going to delete the same resources right from the state. So it has started to destroy already, and it's gonna finish it in next few minutes. And if you go back to the portal, you'll see that it will started to delete resources for us. Yep, that's pretty much all. I think this is all for today. In the next video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover some of the more advanced level stuff, like if you want to create multiple resources, Now we just created one resources, so there are mostly in organization. You don't create a single resource. You generally create multiple resources for multiple environments. Could be like the architecture could be like your front end servers, a bunch of front end servers under the load balancer. You would need the load balancer as well, which are connecting to a private subnet under a virtual network. And there's a bunch of database servers as well, which we need to create. So that's how we're going to understand what are the conditions in Terraform, and how Terraform picks up conditions, if else loop can put into Terraform, and then you can use certain functions. We're going to talk about functions as well, and we're going to talk about output. And yeah, that's pretty much all. If you have something in mind, do share back in the comment. I'll try to cover them as well. So that's pretty much all for today, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Take care.